Hey everyone, how y'all doing? I just wanted to make this little video. I've been inspired by other videos online and wanted to share this with myself in the future, and maybe what I've liked to share in the past to myself, and maybe this would help you as well. And it's basically about overcoming self-doubt or doubt when you're playing music, or about your music or art in general, or anything really. And really, I think the first thing to do, and kind of the idea of this whole thing, is to reframe the whole thing from overcoming self-doubt or doubt to creating belief or confidence. Or I looked up online all these antonyms: confidence, conviction, trust, faith, solutions, are some things that, antonyms or opposites of doubt. So instead of sort of seeing it as a negative, seeing the part where I'm doubting myself, or one is oneself, seeing what I can do to create more belief or trust or confidence. And some of the habits, one is to practice. I would recommend practicing, but you can also I'll get back to that later, but there's different habits I believe that one can create that will help create confidence or belief in the music that one's playing, which is the opposite of doubting the music one's playing, or doubting it so much you don't even want to play. And it's also based on like this, cognitive theory type stuff, cognitive therapy type stuff. This is the book, Feeling Good, is based on this whole, I think his name's David Burns, and I forgot the other person's name. Oh, Aaron Beck, who were the ones that sort of came up with this idea of cognitive behavior therapy. And it's basically another way of talking about ideas where you have these like false beliefs or false senses of reality. I forgot the word. Cognitive. Cognitive distortions, really. And they have a bunch of them in here. And basically, what they do is, what you do is you list out all your, your cognitive distortions, all the the sort of thoughts or memes or beliefs that you have in your head. They're going through your head, and you go through and sort of refute each one of them. Or like, imagine a friend would say it to you. What would you tell your friend to encourage them? I'm gonna wait for the helicopter. Cognitive distortion or cognitive bias. So I'm going to say it again: cognitive distortion, which they use in this book, or cognitive bias, which is more, you can look online, what's the difference between a cognitive distortion and a cognitive bias? Off the top of my head, and I would recommend double checking this, but basically cognitive bias is something that people have all the time. It's sort of, it's almost like human nature, or something like a confirmation bias, where people tend to find things that concur or confirm what they already believe or what they're already thinking. Whereas a cognitive distortion is more, not severe, but more affecting sort of one's sort of like mental, emotional state, as opposed to cognitive biases, which are more affecting behavior in a non sort of like emotional way, like which hamburger you're gonna buy, or how you're gonna make your decisions about investments and stuff, as opposed to like personal, like feeling bad about yourself. I'm not gonna leave the house today because it's just gonna be a terrible day, which is would be an example of a all or nothing cognitive distortion. Because yeah, there may be some bad things that happen, but there'll probably be some other stuff. So here's the cognitive distortions: all or nothing thinking, overgeneralization, mental filter. You pick out a single negative detail and dwell on it exclusively, disqualifying the positive, insisting they don't count, jumping to conclusions, making a negative interpretation, even though there are no definite facts that convincingly support your conclusion, magnifying or minimization, over-exaggerating or under-exaggerating certain things. Emotional reasoning: you assume that your negative emotions necessarily reflect the way things really are. I feel it, therefore it must be true. Should statements. I should be able to play as well as Mozart by the time I'm 30 or something. Labeling and mislabeling. An extreme form of overgeneralization. Instead of describing your error, you attach a negative label to yourself. I'm a loser, as opposed to, you know, well, I made a mistake, but I can learn from it. Personalization. You see yourself as the cause of some negative external event, which in fact you are not primarily responsible for. So anyways, so these are all things that I think happens to anybody, but musicians, I think, you know, experience these challenges, mental challenges. And I think one of the main things for me that might help you too is when I'm actually playing. I think it's one of the ways to lose focus, where you start playing and then maybe you have a certain response to certain things. Like, for example, if someone plays a note and they don't like that note, all of a sudden there's certain mental sort of things that go through one's head, thinking, oh man, that was terrible, man, I suck, blah blah blah, whatever it is. You know, you can think of all these different things, and all of a sudden now the person is caught up in thinking those things as opposed to continuing to play the music. And I think one of the biggest things is to keep focusing on the music, whatever it is. It could be a great thing too, but in the sense like, wow, there's a beautiful sunset, and all of a sudden you forget to play guitar too, or something too. But in general, I think most of the time, you know, people, when it happens, is people are forgetting to focus on the music, and that's probably, I think, probably one of the best ways to overcome the situation, is to just focus on the music. Have like, if someone have kind of like a catchphrase, like for all that stuff, like, man, I'm playing terribly, you know, all these things, blah blah blah. Man, focus on the music. Just, you know, play good music, play this note. You know, really, you know, put out good vibes with this music. All that stuff. You know, coming up with these creative solutions to that allow you to refocus on playing good music. That's one thing. Another thing is going through and like pretending or writing it down. Like, if you, especially, again, I'm not like a psychologist or anything, but like, you know, figuring out if there's certain thoughts that keep on recurring that are negative, that impede enjoyment of music, maybe write those down and figure out, like, imagine if a good friend came to oneself or to you and said, you know, oh man, I really am bummed out because, you know, man, when Bach was 20, he already wrote the cello suites, and man, I've only written like this 3-chord song. Imagine what you'd say to that person, you know, like, well, I mean, there's so much great music in the world. Bach is awesome, but that doesn't mean you can't enjoy the music you play, and that other people won't enjoy that music too, and that you can still also, you know, play that music, whatever you've created, to the, you know, best of your ability and stuff. Another thing, a lot of times, is people maybe have high expectations for themselves, kind of on that same level, but have not developed the habits to support those high expectations. Really, the daily habits of whatever it is, you know, practicing, listening to music, you know, maintaining one's energy level, working on their positive spirits to convey that through the music. All these things are kind of can be related to, you know, personal daily habits. And not that I'm great at any of that stuff, but you know, obviously practicing every day will have a cumulative effect, especially if one's practicing not only the music but practicing, you know, the positive thinking. People always hear positive thinking, they think it's kind of cheesy. It's not necessarily, you don't have to be, just because you're thinking positively doesn't mean you have to think, doesn't mean you do not have to think critically. You can still be like, well, I could, you know, still work on this, my timing seems a little bit off. But instead of saying, man, I suck at timing, my groove is terrible, you can say, well, I can hear there's things about my groove that I can improve on. You know, what can I practice today to improve that? Who can I listen to or play along with? What kind of music, or what when I do like my groove more than, you know, I do right now, what can I do to what's the difference? What's happening? Is it my energy level? Is it because I you know, did a certain warm-up? Did I work with a metronome the day before? Did I play along with a record I like that was a really good groove? So that's another thing. So basically the three things are, So to recap, the three ideas of overcoming self-doubt, the opposite of that, and a really way to look at it is to creating belief in one's music, or creating trust or confidence. And then for the negative ideas that pop in one's head, when one's playing, trying to refocus on the music and just playing as best as one can in that moment. If it's in general, when one isn't playing music, and a good way to do it maybe is to imagine a good friend is saying those things to you, and what you would say to encourage them to sort of look at the bright side of that. And the other thing is to develop habits that sort of encourage musical growth and personal growth too. And obviously, like I said, I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist or any sort of yeah, like I was saying, I'm not like a psychologist or psychiatrist, so this isn't like a professional advice. And if someone is really experiencing real intense depression or something like that, I hope they realize that there's a lot of good things that they can heal themselves, or people can help them out and stuff like that. But I'm not like I'm not a licensed psychologist or healer, so this is more just for general sort of ideas about it, which I think could help anyone. But again, I'm not trying to replace specific challenges or needs that certain challenges might encounter. But in any case, I hope the best for everybody, and I hope you have a great day, and encourage the cultivation of good vibes and things like that. And thanks a lot.